Hello friends, welcome back to Dr. Jackie's Academy. In continuation with the previous lecture on the congestive heart failure, I will discuss the remaining drugs which can be used in the management of congestive heart failure in the second part. So what we studied in the previous video, the definition, stages and the role of compensatory mechanism in the CHF, the classification of the drugs, RAS inhibitors, beta blockers, aldosterone antagonists and diuretics. So what we will study in this class? Inotropic agents, vasodilators, neprilysin inhibitor, that is sacubitril, then synthetic BNP, nizatide. So now first of all, starting with the inotropic agents. We also use the word positive inotropic agents, That means these are the agents which increase the force of contraction of the heart. As a result of the increased contraction, there is an increase in the cardiac output. But very important thing, it has to be remembered that they increase the cardiac output without a disproportionate increase in the oxygen demand. That means they are not using that much oxygen to increase the cardiac output. So that means they are increasing the efficiency of the heart, using a little bit of the oxygen but increasing the contraction of the heart, increasing the cardiac output. Otherwise you can say adrenaline is also inotropic agents. But adrenaline, what will happen? It increases the heart rate, it increases the contraction, but at the same time it increases the oxygen utilization also. So it is not an efficient mechanism. But these inotropic, they are very efficient, do not cause increase in oxygen utilization but increase the contraction of the heart. So what is the status of inotropic agents? I will discuss number of inotropic agents, but the common thing is that they are used for the symptomatic management of CHF. The symptoms, what is the major problem? The decrease in the cardiac output. So they increase the cardiac output. So as a result, the symptoms are improved. But very important thing to remember is that they are just for the short-term management. Whenever there is a contractility is very poor, you cannot give these inotropic agents for the whole life of the patient. So if you start doing that kind of a thing, so what will happen? They do not decrease the progression of the disease. That is not a beneficial effect. Rather, you can see if you are using for a long term, person may die also. The death rate may increase, the survival will be reduced. So you have to use these drugs very judicially. Whenever it is required, use it. Whenever it is not required, remove it. So when it is required, when the contractility is very poor, you see it is very poor, just give for certain period of time in the hospitals, then withdraw it. What are the inotropic agents? Cardiac glycosides. Actually, these are the plant-based material. Cardiac, it is because of the action is on the heart. Glycoside is basically the sugar and aglycone portion. They are derived from digitalis, digoxin and digitoxin. Digoxin is more commonly employed. Sympathomimetic agents, which are similar to sympathetic nervous system. Dobutamine and dopamine, they are preferred. Then phosphodiesterase 3 inhibitor, third is missing, but phosphodiesterase third isoform inhibitor, like Inamrinone, Milrinone, levosimendan, these kind of drugs. So I will discuss one by one. So coming down to what is the mechanism of action of digoxin? Very important, just try to understand. So now let's say this is a heart cell, and like any other cell, it is also having a sodium potassium ATPase pump. This pump causes the extrusion of sodium ions, 3 sodium ions outside the cell, and causes the inward movement of 2 potassium ions. So what is the ultimate result? Ultimate result is that because 3 sodiums they are going outside, ultimately there is a decrease in the intracellular sodium. Inside sodium is reduced, but sodium is higher outside. As a result, what you can see, there is a gradient is maintained, electrochemical gradient is maintained. More sodium, less sodium. So what happens? Actually, heart goes into the systole phase, then it goes into the diastole phase. So I am discussing what happens in the diastole. Diastole means relaxation of the heart. During relaxation, calcium has to move outside the cell, then it will relax. During the systole, calcium moves inside. But during diastole, calcium moves outside. How calcium moves outside? With the help of this sodium calcium exchanger. So this sodium calcium exchanger, what it does is that because there is a more sodium outside, so this sodium moves inside. As a consequence, calcium moves outside. So there is exchange of these two. So that means this gradient helps to move sodium inside and calcium goes outside. So this is a normal thing which is happening. Now in the normal thing, you have added the digoxin. You have added digoxin. Digoxin will have an impact on this pump. It will inhibit this pump, sodium potassium ATPase. As a result, if this pump is inhibited, you can see this decrease will not take place. Sodium will be higher inside. So this gradient will be reduced. So obviously, if the gradient is reduced, so sodium will not go inside because already sodium is higher inside. So if the sodium is not going inside, calcium will not move outside. That means calcium levels will increase. So calcium is not moving outside. So that means there is increase in the calcium, and this increase in the calcium is available for the next time for the systolic function. That means increase in the contractility. So what you can say, digoxin inhibits this pump, sodium potassium ATPase. As a consequence, indirectly it increases the calcium, and this increase in calcium is causing the increase in the contractility. So what are the actions of digoxin on the heart? It increases the force of contraction, especially if the heart is failing, it is not pumping. It increases the cardiac output. What happens on the heart rate? Very important. It reduces the heart rate, it produces the bradycardia. Why bradycardia? Two reasons. It activates the vagal center, parasympathetic nervous system, vagus nerve, it reduces the heart rate. Second thing is that if the cardiac output is improved, ultimately sympathetic overactivity is reduced. You remember that cardiac output was not there, that is why there was an overactivation of sympathetic nervous system. But once cardiac output is improved, sympathetic overactivation automatically will bring down and heart rate will reduce. Third thing, effect on the conduction from atria to ventricles. This conduction is slowed down, AV nodal conduction is slowed down. Side effect of digoxin. So it is a low therapeutic index. That means it is safety of margin is low. Even if you slightly increase the dose, it is going to produce number of adverse effects. So we can classify adverse effects into two types: extra cardiac, which and second will be cardiac. That means effect on the heart and beyond the heart. Nausea, vomiting is very prominent. Diarrhea is also common. It may produce some visual changes, fatigue, mental confusion, restlessness, and in very severe condition, frank psychosis-like condition. Then cardiac. So in cardiac, you can say it can produce any kind of the arrhythmia. It can produce severe bradycardia, severe decrease in the heart rate, AV nodal blockade, which can be partial or it can be complete. It can produce ventricular arrhythmias, tachycardia, these kind of things, and other kind of arrhythmia. So these are the side effects of digoxin. So now if there is a digitalis toxicity, high dose of digitalis has been given. So if there is a ventricular arrhythmia, so what is the drug that we will give? We will give lidocaine intravenously. The reason why lidocaine is preferred, because it has no effect on AV conduction. You know, digitalis produces a block in the AV conduction, and if you give some other antiarrhythmic agent which is also reducing AV conduction, then it is going to add on the it will further decrease the AV conduction. But lidocaine has no effect on AV conduction. That is why it is preferred in the ventricular arrhythmia. Then supraventricular arrhythmia, propranolol is the drug of choice, beta blocker. Now if there is AV blockade or bradycardia, you can give anticholinergic like atropine is the drug of choice. It increases the heart rate, it increases the AV conduction. Now in this severe condition, you can use the digoxin antibody. An antibody has been developed which binds to this digoxin and it reduces the cardiotoxicity. It is available in the name of Digiband or Digifab, and it is actually a FAB fragment. And one more arrhythmia I want to discuss is that tachyarrhythmias. Tachyarrhythmia, what you have to do, it can be due to the chronic use of digitalis, that means for a long term use. So now you have to see, if you are using digitalis for a long period of time, then there is a decrease in the potassium levels in the plasma. Okay, then monitor potassium levels and give KCl, potassium chloride. When you are giving potassium, it decreases the binding of digitalis to the sodium potassium ATPase. So KCl, potassium, decreases the side effects of digitalis, but only if there is a decrease in plasma potassium levels. But in contrast, if there is an acute ingestion of high dose of digitalis, acute dose, then in that condition there is a very high level of potassium levels in that patient. So in that condition, don't give potassium chloride, it is contraindicated. So what I want to tell is that in chronic conditions of digitalis toxicity, give potassium, but in the acute conditions, don't give potassium. Then another class of the inotropic agents, sympathomimetic agents, dobutamine and dopamine. They act on the beta-1 receptors to increase the heart contractility, improvement in cardiac output. So again, what is the use? As I told earlier, in the for all inotropic agents, they are used for the short period of time in the severe cases of congestive heart failure. Digitalis, digoxin is also having the same use. Used for a short period of time in the severe conditions of congestive heart failure. And between these two, we prefer dobutamine. Then third class of the inotropic agents, phosphodiesterase 3 inhibitors. So like enambrinon, milrinone, levosimendan, and we prefer milrinone. This is the preferred agent amongst these three. So now, CMP is an intracell second messenger. It is degraded in the presence of this phosphodiesterase 3, and these inhibitors, they block this phosphodiesterase 3. If this degradation is blocked, the levels of CMP will be increased. So if this CMP is increased in the blood vessels, it produces the vasodilation. If this CMP is increased in the heart, it produces the increase in heart contractility. So that is why it is called as inotropic. So commonly we use the word inodilators. Ino mean it increases the heart contraction, ino. Dilator, it produces the vasodilation, and both are beneficial in this CHF patient. And the status is same, short-term management of acute and severe cases of congestive heart failure. Don't give for a long period of time. Then coming down to the another class. First was the inotropic, second class is vasodilators. Now these can be arterial dilators, which dilates the arteries, like hydralazine. It dilates arteries and reduces the afterload. We can have a venodilators, which dilates the veins, like nitrates, and the drug is isosorbide dinitrate. It dilates veins and reduces the preload. Glyceryl trinitrate can be used only for a severe conditions, severe decompensated stage of heart. Then we can have which are having both the actions, veno and arterial dilators, like sodium nitroprusside intravenously, very fast acting, and it is given in a very severe conditions of the congestive heart failure, along with loop diuretics and the inotropic agents. So what I am telling is, if you are having a very severe conditions, then you can give loop diuretic, inotropic and sodium nitroprusside. So now coming down to the use of these nitrates and hydralazine. So what I am telling is that these two drugs are used in combination. The combination of hydralazine and isosorbide dinitrate is used because hydralazine reduces the preload. This is the wrong thing. Hydralazine reduces the afterload, okay, and nitrate reduces the preload. So this afterload, again this is afterload. This reduction in afterload and preload, they are beneficial. So it reduces the symptoms, symptomatic improvement, decrease in congestion and improvement in cardiac output. But do not reduce the progression of the disease. No effect on cardiac remodeling. So what is the status where these drugs are used? Normal, I told, the drug of choice is the ACE inhibitors or angiotensin receptor blocker. But if you are not able to use these two, when this is contraindicated, then you can use the combination of hydralazine and isosorbide dinitrate. But don't give hydralazine or isosorbide individually. Always give in combination in CHF. Now this is a relatively new drug, sacubitril, but is a very effective drug. This is neprilysin inhibitor. It is orally given. It inhibits the degradation of this neprilysin inhibitor. This inhibits the degradation of natriuretic peptide like BNP and ANP. BNP is the brain natriuretic peptide. ANP is the atrial natriuretic peptide. And these, if the levels of these natriuretic peptides they are increased, they produce vasodilation. And this vasodilation is very effective. So clinically, sacubitril is used in combination with valsartan. Only it is used in combination with valsartan, and the combination of these two is found to be very, very effective. Even the effects are higher than the ACE inhibitors like enalapril. So it reduces the mortality rate. Very effective drug, sacubitril. Then we are having naziritide. This is a recombinant brain natriuretic peptide. This natriuretic peptide, it produces the vasodilation plus promotes water excretion, salt and water. It is used only for a short-term management to overcome the dyspnea, symptomatic management. If the person is not responding, that is refractory CHF. Don't give for a long-term benefit. It is not having a long-term beneficial effects. Then this is another drug, tolvaptan. You know there is a antidiuretic hormone, vasopressin. Vasopressin acts on its receptor V1 and V2. So this tolvaptan is a V2 receptor blocker. So it blocks the action of antidiuretic. So the actions of antidiuretic hormone they are blocked. So as a result, it promotes the water excretion. It reduces the edema. It is used for the short-term management of refractory CHF if the person is not responding to other drugs. So in the upcoming video,